What could go wrong when everything has gone wrong? Today, we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls with catastrophic auto accident injury cases. Good morning out there. This is Jobeth Bowers, your Elkton, your Cecil County accident and injury guy, coming at you from my office here in Elkton at a new time. That's right. We are now doing these at 11 a.m. There's been some stuff that I've been getting courted into on Monday mornings that shifting this an hour makes it a little bit easier for me. We're still going to provide the same great content that we always provide, even if the background changes, because we are possibly working with an upcoming new podcast studio that will be launching in downtown Elkton early next year. So this week we are going to talk about, it's a very difficult situation sometimes, and that is when we're dealing with catastrophic injuries, severe injuries, surgeries, permanent disfigurement, all of that. What happens? Well, you've heard me talk on numerous episodes about the importance of your own insurance policy, because as I've said numerous times, and will say numerous more times, you don't get to pick who hits you, who they're insured by, if they're insured at all, and of course, how much insurance they have. We still very much deal with and are oftentimes limited by those insurance limits. While it's no guarantee that the person with bad insurance limits has no assets, more and more that seems to be the case. What do I mean by that? Well, all of this talk that I've had over the years on the website, on the podcast, on other YouTube stuff indicates this theoretical limit to the value of a case lying within the limits of an auto insurance policy. It is a theoretical limit. It's not a real limit, because what a case is worth ultimately is up to a jury in most situations if the case were to proceed all the way to trial and to verdict. But the problem, and why the insurance is so important, is because rarely is there a situation to actually collect that excess judgment that is above and beyond the limits of the insurance policy. When we're in a situation where we have, that crossroads of the insurance company has offered the limits of their policy, what do you want to do? We will do a proper amount of due diligence, digging, and sometimes even extensive asset checks that could cost thousands of dollars to ensure that the folks that are personally responsible for the accident do or do not have assets that could stretch beyond the limit of that insurance policy. Why is it relevant? Well, if there is somebody who causes a severe accident, let's say let's say for a matter of the explanation that the verdict on this case would be $1 million. So we don't have to argue about what the case is worth. For the purposes of this example, everybody agrees that the case is worth $1 million, and every fictitious jury that we could hypothetically think of will agree that this case is worth exactly $1 million. Why? Irrelevant at this point. If we are dealing with an insurance company who has a Maryland minimum insurance policy, that is $30,000 per person. That's it, just 30 grand. That insurance company is most likely, as soon as they get enough documentation to understand how severe the accident is, 99 out of 100 of those insurance companies are going to say, hey, we're offering the 30 grand. We know that we owe this claim. Why? Because the extent of their duty, which we've talked about in the past, that they owe to protect their insured, stops at the limit of that policy. Once they've offered the limit of that policy, regardless of what happens, they're kind of hands off at that point in time. So what happens if we want more money? If we think that there could be more money, or just we need to file a lawsuit for whatever reason? Well, we take the thing to trial. And as we talked about, the verdict is $1 million. Again, we've set that fact in stone. We're not going to debate that here. So what happens after that? Well, the insurance company cuts a check for, drum roll please, wait for it, 30 grand. Yes, just the 30 grand, because that's all they're obligated to. So what happens with the other $970,000? It's a judgment. It's an excess judgment that is highly unlikely to be collected. It's at least in full. There are attorneys out there that do collection work that can attach wages. We've done some of the work in certain situations. But the reality of the situation is that somebody faced with that dilemma, they're the defendant, they only have a $30,000 insurance policy, there's $1 million verdict, now they have $970,000 in debt just from this accident. There may be more debt in their life. It's not that difficult in many situations for somebody in that dilemma to file for bankruptcy and make poof, all of it go away forever. This is why we do the checks that we do and the due diligence to determine, is this person somebody that we can, should, or have any business going after to try to get a verdict in excess. Now, sometimes in that process, an insurance company will be able to help us, or the attorney, if we filed suit, will be able to help us negotiate a situation where that individual chips in some money toward resolving the case before it gets to a verdict. But that situation is very rare. That situation's only going to come up in those situations where we find significant assets. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice that sometime between the time that you file suit, when they didn't have any assets, and the time that the case has a verdict, and shortly thereafter, that the other driver wins the lottery. And you don't even know if the other driver plays the lottery. It's not always the best bet. So we talk all the time, many episodes of the podcast, about that underinsured motorist coverage. A couple of weeks ago, I recently talked about the newer enhanced underinsured motorist coverage. And I talked about it in the context of, when you get a new policy, you're going to have this unless you waive it. It doesn't just apply to new policies. You could call your insurance agent right now, today, and say, hey, I want a price on enhanced underinsured motorist coverage. And they're going to click a few buttons in your policy and say, that would cost you 12 extra bucks, or whatever the number is. I don't know the number because they're all different, but they can give you that. And then you can make a decision. Hey, I want this stacking coverage, because if you only have $100,000 worth of coverage and you get hurt really, really bad, again, we're going to assume that verdict to be $1 million. And the person who hits you has good insurance, but not enough to cover it. The person that hits you has a $500,000 insurance policy. So not as bad as a situation as only having 30. But if the case is worth $1 million, 500 is less. If you only have $100,000 of insurance coverage with the old type of coverage, all you get is the 500. Now, this is a scenario where, with somebody having that insurance, they may also have assets that our due diligence will uncover. I don't know that I've ever seen it with a $30,000 insurance policy. And I've been doing this on my own for 11 years and even longer before that for other law firms. I've never seen somebody that just has that minimum limits policy actually have assets worth going after. At least not in a scenario where we've had an accident that was bad enough for us to pursue that. That unicorn probably exists out there, where somebody was just buying cut rate insurance. I need to save some money, whatever it is. If you have the enhanced underinsured motorist coverage, in that scenario I just described, you'd get the 500 from the at-fault insurance company. You'd also get an extra 100 stacked on top, so 600 total. Still not the $1 million, but better. I always recommend at a minimum, if you are a homeowner, and honestly, I've got to look at numbers, because this has been something I'm about to say that I've been saying for over a decade. So I probably need to adjust what I'm saying for inflation. But if you are a homeowner, and I don't mean you own the house outright cash, I mean you have a mortgage, you own a home, you're making mortgage payments, Most of these homes these days are worth $200,000, $300,000, $500,000. Even though when I first was saying this, they were probably worth $250,000 to $300,000. Now those are worth $300,000 to $500,000. The minimum liability insurance policy that you want to look at is $250,000 per person, $500,000 total. You need to look at this, especially when it comes to the underinsured motorist part of it. Plan for the worst. I'm not saying that this bad stuff is going to happen to you. Not every case that comes in our office is catastrophic. But imagine a scenario in which you are out of work for a long time. How much money would you need to pay off the rest of that house? Your insurance policy should at least have that much, if not more, underinsured motorist coverage, because again, you're not going to get all of that money in your pocket. You're going to have medical bills to pay, attorneys to pay, other expenses that go into making these cases work. And if you haven't looked at these numbers yet, if you haven't gone to your agent and kind of toyed around with the numbers, I promise you, you will be surprised at how minimal of an increase going from $100,000 in coverage to $250,000 in coverage is. It's not a whole lot, because most cases fall value-wise underneath the 100K. So the likelihood of somebody paying between $100,000 and $250,000 is relatively low. But you, as the potential injured person, or as somebody in your family potentially being injured, don't want to be on the, oh, we didn't think that was going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope everything I'm telling you is an absolute waste of time, but you want to know and you want to be protected. So make sure you're taking a look at that auto insurance policy, because those things are there to protect you. Feel free to reach out. You want me to take a look at your auto policy? I'm going to do it absolutely free. You do not have to be a current or former client of mine. You don't even have to be a future client of mine, meaning you could say, I hate this guy. I would never hire this guy, but I want him to take a look at my insurance policy. Sure, that doesn't make any sense, but let's say that's the scenario. There is no quid pro quo for me taking a look at and giving you advice on your auto insurance policy. And I don't sell insurance, so there's no sales pitch at the end. It's going to be, here, ask your agent these questions. Look at the pricing for these options, and then you do with that what you want. I've given you the information, the guidance, and the knowledge of what might put you in a better situation in that worst case scenario. You can always get more coverage. Ask about umbrella policies. I think next week we'll do a session on what umbrella policies are, what they cover, what you need to ask about, because they are not all umbrella policies are the same anymore. It used to be pretty kind of boilerplate. This is what you get. Now there's extra stuff that you can get. So that's all I got for this week. If you need past episodes of the podcast, check it out. Go to the website, bowerslawmd.com, right up top. I don't know why that lines up that way. It's supposed to fill the whole screen. Well, that makes that go away. Click where it says podcast. You're going to find a whole list of all of the former podcast episodes. They should be searchable. And as always, if you have a topic for the podcast, new website for the podcast is coming soon, where you'll be able to submit questions for the podcast on that website. Get a catalog of all of the old episodes. That's coming this spring. So it's a work in progress. Again, be well, be safe out there. If you have any other questions for the podcast, drop a line. We're here